lectern to, do a follow-up on that. All right, so that is why I'm going to stand here. You want me to use this? All right, I guess I'll use this. You can put this off. So like I said, I thought I'll stand here because, I require a little bit of support to do a follow-up. But before I begin, I'd just like to also thank Dr. Sandeep Bakshi and everybody here to have, invited me here to share my thoughts with all of you. I run a school, and this is the entire campus. We are a boarding cum day school on top of a hill in Pune. It's right next to the NDA, the National Defense Academy. And we follow the IB programs. In fact, we are probably amongst the first schools in India to do all 4 of them. And we do nothing else. We do the primary years program, the middle years, the diploma program, and this year we've also started the career-related program, the IBCP. And we are a school of 1,000 students, and we've got 2 different campuses, one in also beyond Pune in Bangalore and Hyderabad, which also do exactly the same thing. However, today what I'm going to speak is not about IB, because I know that most people here are not from IB schools. They work with CBSE, and we've got Mr. Tripathi who's leading the CBSE. So I'm going to talk about something completely different. Today, if you look at a young child who walks into your school, age 4 or 5, it's 2040 when he's going to become economically relevant. The 2040 world is going to be completely different to what it exists today. Now, as educators, and it doesn't matter what program you're offering, as educators, the first question you've got to ask yourself, what am I doing in school to prepare this young child to become relevant in 2040? And I use the word relevant because as educators, I think it's very, very important. Like I said, everywhere, whatever I say, all right, is just my thoughts. They may not be relevant to you. Please ignore them. They may not be in your context. Please ignore them. But I'm just sharing certain probabilistic things, in fact, all right, which will be there in 2040 that I'll talk about later. But as educators, you've got to say, the people used to talk about quality of education. Of course, quality of education is extremely important. But what was quality in my time may not be quality today. For me, good handwriting was good quality. My children are not going to write. In fact, they're not even going to type. Today, a pen is only used to do signatures. In 2040, there'll be some retinal scan or DNA or whatever, and you won't even need to sign for that. So that is the world we've got to get them ready for. So what is going to be relevant education is more important, and we've got to figure out our relevance in our own contexts. All right, it's not my size will fit yours and your size will fit mine. We've got different kinds of schools, different kind of backgrounds, different kind of parental expectations, different kind of student bodies. So we've got to figure it out ourselves. All right. So that's number one, that education is to become relevant. Because when we talk about future, today people are talking about future of work. 80% of the jobs that our children are going to do who walk into our school actually do not exist today. So what are we preparing them for? We are just hoping that they're getting ready for that. And that's why when Sir spoke about that there were no skills that kids had. They couldn't be employed. Mr. Narayan Murthy, who's now even more famous because his son-in-law is the British Prime Minister, said that over 50% of IITians are unemployable because they do not have the skills that are required. So it's extremely important that, and like Mr. Tripathi said, that the shift takes place from content teaching to concept teaching. Unless and until that does not happen, never ever will be able to bring about this change. The first thing is we've got to change mindset. Now, when I talk about concept, and what you can do now, there's a very, very interesting technique that you can use, and you can read about it a lot more. It's called the Feynman technique. Feynman was Einstein's understudy, and most people thought that Feynman was actually more brilliant than even Einstein. Now, he says one very simple thing. He says if, and this is something as principals and teachers you can reflect for yourself. He says, if a teacher can explain a complex concept to an 8-year-old, that means in grade 3, okay? That means a teacher can explain atomic physics to grade 3. And that grade 3 teacher can then teach that, grade 3 student can teach that same concept to a grade 11 student, then the teacher understands the concept. If the teacher can't make the grade 3 student understand, they don't understand the concept. So the problem has to be within us. I'll give you a very interesting example when we talk about concepts. Now, again, like I said, I don't want you to, think about IB all the time, because that's not my focus. But in our primary years, we don't have subjects. It is knowledge-based inquiry method. And when they finish an area of inquiry, they call parents in, and those parents then, can ask questions to students about how much has their learning been. The important thing is learning. So, they had a math inquiry, and this is grade 5, okay? And, all the kids were standing in the class, and parents came, and you could ask any student anything you wanted. And parents were questioning, and there was this one particular parent who kept asking a lot of questions to a girl who was not his daughter. And after he had kind of questioned her, he said, young girl, you are really smart. Okay, you've answered some questions absolutely brilliantly. And she says, sir, I think you know a lot of math. He says, yeah, I'm a data scientist. I did PhD from an Ivy League school, all right, in math. She says, yeah, good. Can I ask you a question? So he said, yeah, sure. A grade 5 ki girl to a PhD. So she says, sir, tell me one thing. After we teach calculations to students, why is algebra the first concept that is taught to children? It's not trigonometry, it is not geometry, but it is algebra. Why do they do that? So obviously this guy who was very educated had done content-based education most of his life and was unaware. So he says, sorry, I don't know. You asked me something I'm not aware of. So she says, sir, actually it is taught not only as a math concept, but it is taught to train the brain of a young person to understand relationships. That is the concept teaching. All right. Today, people will use the World War I in a business class. The World War I started with the Archbishop getting killed. All right. And that led to 2 countries going to war, and then it went on to become a world war. Small incident. So, World War I is not a story. Now, a business teacher will say that there are certain stocks that have the ability, by small changes, insignificant as they may be, to cause big upturn or downturn in the stock market. You've got to understand that, the butterfly effect. All right. So conceptual teaching, and as Sir said, is the key to bringing about making education relevant. Anyway, I'm not going to, I've got a lot of things to show. I'm just going, all right. I'm going to come to this very interesting picture. Now, as a part of our endeavor, we've integrated artificial intelligence in the classroom. Right. So we've integrated AI in an extremely big way, and I'm going to be talking a little bit of the collaborative learning model. We are the first school that have introduced teacher robots in class. All right. What they are capable, they're all AI driven. They've been built completely in the school. I mean, we've not even bought we've even 3D printed the robot. Okay. Now, very interestingly, we were doing a workshop about Indus, that's my school, 2030. Okay, and we had 2 sets of people. We had teachers and we had students attending that workshop. And they were finally asked to present a novella. Novella is, a small, thin, illustrated book. Okay. They were asked to present a novella on what they thought was 2030. All right. What the classroom would look like in, it's okay. What the classroom would look like in 2030. Very interestingly, and you are all educators here, and it's extremely important that you pay attention to this. The teachers, when they presented the class, obviously had a lot of technology, all that kind of thing integrated into their classroom. When the students produced the novella, they did not have the human teacher. Now, unless we unlearn, relearn, re-roll, reskill, educators as in today will become irrelevant in 2030 and beyond. And therefore, it is very, very important for us to have clarity of thought and say, what is it I need to do that I will provide education that my student wants? Otherwise, they don't want that education. Then what will I do? Okay. And like I said, everyone has a different context. So please don't get me wrong. You don't need to do this only. You could do other things. Now, in my opinion, this is what education wants to become. It needs to become anti-fragile. And it's become even more apparent today because of COVID and so on and so forth. Nissan Nicholas Taleb wrote a book called The Black Swan. The Black Swan are highly improbable, most unlikely events that happen, which can cause huge disruptions in the world. COVID was an example of it. It caused huge disruption and the whole world stopped, education stopped, everything came to an end. And as educators, let me tell you, COVID is coming back, by the way, everyone's talking about it, but the big disruption in the next 20, 30 years is going to be climate change. It is going to cause huge amount of disruption, and we as educators have to be prepared for it. If we are not prepared for it, the people forgave us this time because nobody expected it. But now they say, hey buddy, you know it's going to happen, so you better be ready for it. All right? So he wrote the book. Then he wrote another book called Anti-Fragile. Now it's very interesting, and that's why I say it has to be anti-fragile education. See, when there is chaos, most people talk about becoming resilient or becoming robust. There's problem, I'm resilient, I'm robust, I can fight against it. Anti-fragile is different. Anti-fragile is when you have the ability to thrive in chaos. If I have a ball, I'm talking physics, if I drop it, it's going to bounce, it'll never go higher than where I dropped it from. It'll be lower than that, no? But anti-fragile are who can bounce beyond from where it was thrown. That is anti-fragility. So we need to create an education system where young people will become anti-fragile because they are going to go through decades and decades of disruption. We need to create young people who don't only think outside the box, but young people who think outside the building. Now, outside the building is where you keep community in mind. People used to say, think within the box. Now they say, think outside the box. You got to think outside the building. Because the COVID has said that all these things are not confined. They're worldwide. And therefore, it's extremely important. Sir talked a lot about the 4 C's, the 21st century skills, and fortunately, I do a program where a lot of it is integrated. But how do we integrate it in everyday? How do we make our kids creative? How do we make them critical thinkers? What is it that I do in my school that makes them collaborative? And I must tell you this, Harkness method, read about it. Very simple method. It's called the Harkness method, Harkness, which you can all implement in the school. Just read about it. And that's a great way of doing collaboration. So for every skill, we must figure out what we can do in the school to make sure that critical thinking is happening. Okay, and I'll share about what we are doing a little bit, very briefly. So we need to make anti-fragile education, because this is a VUCA world. Volatile, uncertain, ambiguous, and chaotic. And today it is not VUCA coming and going, it is VUCA plus, VUCA forever there. And that is why I say anti-fragile education extremely important. Now, Sir spoke, before I get to that. So education, in my opinion, is to prepare young people for a future that we do not know. We don't know what 2040 is going to look like. How do we do that? We do that, and again, there was a lot of talk about it in today's morning talk, is to build a whole range of skills, competencies, ability to do. And I think I spoke about it even 2 years ago. There's a very interesting book by David Epstein called The Range. You must read it as educators. And the subtitle of the book is that in today's world, it is the generalist who triumphs over the specialist. It's not jack of all trades. It is a guy who's got a great signature strength, but he's got a cross of other competencies. T skills, they call them. One signature strength and a whole lot of competencies, so you have a complete range. Today, a mechanical engineer alone cannot design a car. He has to understand software, he has to understand aesthetics, he's got to understand aerodynamics, he's got to understand styling. So many things before he comes up with a quality car that you will buy. So you've got to build a whole range. Education had, in my opinion, a very limited purpose. And we are continuing, and Sir spoke about it, that how the Brits changed it. Indian education in Gurukul was about what I'm going to show you now. Indian education during Gurukul, the purpose was to prepare a young student for life. But we narrowed it down. Schools became something that you have to get them the right kind of marks to get into the best possible college. Right, that's it. And then everything else that the student did beyond the academic program, we classified as extracurriculars. In fact, for many years it was called extra only. All right, you played one sport, you did something, and an odd kid who didn't play, and I was very happy to know that, I studied in a school very close to where, Mr. Tripathi was. Okay, so there is a different connection now that I have with him. Yeah, if an odd kid didn't play, which was quite unlikely in my type of school, but a lot of other schools, teachers used to say, so what if he doesn't play? He's good in studies, he'll do well. All right, so extracurriculars were not given importance. Then they started to realize that these extracurriculars were actually bringing out lots of skills and competencies among children, like collaboration, even communication, leadership skills. They changed the terminology. They say we're now going to call it co-curriculars. And everybody must play one sport. Even the CCE card had all those different headings in which you had to put all of them down because they said that it is important. So it became co-curricular, and it continues to be co-curriculars. In my opinion, today a relevant education is of two parts. An academic part, which is priority number one. Please don't underestimate, whether it is CBSE, Cambridge, ICSE, IB, whatever. That's the first priority for every parent, for every child. Because that's what's going to get you into college, and you want to go into a good college. All right? And like Sir said, you can teach, I guarantee you can teach the syllabus in 1/3 the time. You can compact syllabus and make it as effective. That's the point I completely 500% agree with him. Because I've done it myself. I teach chemistry, I taught, So it is not that I was just teaching some subject that you could compact. You have to teach all the chapters, all the different things, etc., etc. So it's academic, and the other is the non-academic part. Now the non-academic includes the extracurriculars, co-curriculars, but most importantly, it includes competencies and skills that students will require in 2040. Now, each one of you has to figure out what are the skills and competencies you think. I am no guru, all right? You are all understand your own local context. You got to figure out what do you think will your young kid require in 2040 for him or her to thrive in that world. Those skills you got to then create an environment. So the problem is, the big problem is that all the skills and competencies that you will figure out that your children require, you don't have them. I don't have them for sure. I'm not a creative guy, and sir spoke about it. Young children, they have 98% creativity. This is Google, you can Google it. By the time they leave school, it is down to 10, 12%. People like me have zero. All right? Because as, you know, it's well documented, and you won't believe if I say it, but if some international guru says it, everyone believes it, that schools kill creativity. Because children like conformed kids. They like people who obey to them and say right exactly what they tell. All right, so the non-academic program will be built by three things. See, you require what is called the third teacher. See, every child gets parent as the first teacher. The teachers in the school as their second teacher. The third teacher is the environment as heads of schools, as principals, as teachers, as collaborators that you will have to create in order for them to build up those skills and competencies that you can't teach them. The problem is that. Now, I'm just giving you some examples. In my view, in my probabilistic thinking, this is key. That if I can bring these happen, make these happen in school, I will start getting them ready, and they have many subplots and subsets and so on and so forth. Tomorrow's world is going to be data-driven, completely. Communication is going to happen through numbers. Today, it is a person from IIT who says when the next wave of COVID will come, not a person from the hospital. All right? Because they are using data, they are using mathematical models, algorithms have become a way of life. So, in fact, in our system, math is compulsory up to grade 12. You can't drop math in IB in 11 and 12 because it's extremely important that children understand how to do numbers. AI, artificial intelligence, is now a part of our lives. You will think they're not, but you are today surrounded by AI. And I know there are a lot of young people who will agree with me. Today you search for something on Amazon, next day similar ads are there on Facebook, on Instagram. You know, they're trying to sell you the same thing because of AI. You know, algorithms are at play. They say Google knows more about you than you know about yourself. All right? Right, so artificial intelligence, sorry? Absolutely. So artificial intelligence has to be integrated, like in every other walk of life, in your education system. If you don't integrate AI, and there are various ways of doing it, and cheaper ways of doing it, if you don't integrate artificial intelligence, then your children will miss out on an environment that is actually a normal environment. Today, my environment is me. Sorry, I'm putting myself first. There are other people whom with I interact, and we are interconnected with artificial intelligence. Listen, people talk about robotic lab, robotics, important, okay, learning coding is like a language. But everyone is not going to build robots. Everyone is not going to build AI. They've got to learn how to use AI. And we've got to create an environment in the school where AI becomes a way of their life. Design thinking, and I'm going to talk a little more about it. When I say that I want my students to become creative and collaborative and innovative, and Sir spoke a lot on innovative mindset, we've got to create an innovative mindset. And creativity, till you don't make them creative, because innovation is an outcome of creativity. All right, creativity is the thought that is there, the process, and then it leads to innovation. If we don't do that, it won't happen. So we decided, and I'm just giving you one example, and you know, you can do different ways of doing it, that if we want our children to become collaborative and creative, and you know, and we want them to have a mindset which is innovative, we need to introduce design thinking in the school formally. So I tried it with teachers, it didn't work. All right? Because it was very difficult in spite of the fact that we trained and trained and trained. Today you have a lot of organizations that help you do it, but we just went ahead and hired designers from design schools. All right, so we've now, our entire group has 27 designers who come from design schools. They don't teach any physics, math, etc., etc. Their job is only to teach design thinking. Design thinking, originated at the MIT, and it is a creative way to come up with collaborative solutions. That is what it is. All right. And it allows you to build empathy, it allows you to build collaboration. So you've got to, like I said, in a school, if we talk about anything, we've got to first decide what is it that we are going to do, how are we going to do that. Otherwise what happens, the problem is it just remains as a thing on the paper or policy and that we want to do it. Okay. Personalization of learning. If we do not personalize learning, see today, the problem is that factory model will not work anymore. Okay, and a lot of our education is directed. Directed means it is teacher led. All right, teacher gives the questions, they give the answer. Teacher book is the same thing. Our expectation is for the student to repeat what the book says, and that's why we wrote learned, and we try to promote that even today. In fact, if you write exactly the same words, you'll get full marks. And we believe in, and Mr. Tripathi spoke a lot, we believe a lot on assessment of learning. So first you teach, then your good teacher does practice, they make you do questions at the end of every chapter, then he gives a test or an exam, and you get marks, and those marks are then put in a report card. And based on your report card, your parents decide whether you will get a chocolate or a danda. Okay. So if your report card says 95, 96, 97, everyone is shown that report card, and that's how we judge kids. But are they able to do what they know? Right. So when we talk about personalization, I'm going to give you lots of examples. I'll leave these slides with you. There are lots of them which you can use later on. Is that in personalization of learning, it has to be student directed, number one. There has to be autonomy. There has to be a lot of assessment for learning. Like he said, 240 days, all the 8 hours that they're there, they're undergoing assessment. All right. They started it with CCE, but it was not very, it could have been done better. Okay. So it has to be assessed. In fact, I'm sorry, I'm going to use a very crude example, so please don't mind doing that. Most teachers teach in the class because they're forced to teach. Our system is forcing them to teach. But the same teachers, when they take tuition, focus on learning. Same teacher, right? In the class they teach. When you go to the house, they say, okay, math ka sum karo. You don't know it, they will tell you how to do it. Assessment for learning. Then you say, do another one. You can't do it, then they say, your first part is right, second part is wrong. Aise karo, assessment for learning. They have to give no exam, no test, no reports, no syllabus completion, but in 1 or 2 months the child starts to improve because the thought process is not focused on teaching, but it gets focused on learning, making the young student learn how to do it. Same teacher, there's no rocket science involved in it. All right. So the minute you stop focusing completely on teaching, and Sir spoke a lot about this today morning, and start focusing on learning, student learning. It's okay if you don't complete 3 chapters, as long as the students are able to do in the 2 chapters that you've taught them. That is what is important. All right. So personalization of learning, and we have introduced a thing called the blockchain. I don't know if others will want to do it. But blockchain is something that is going to be a big thing in the next 4 or 5 years. All financial transactions are going to happen through blockchains. Banks are going to be non-existent. And blockchain is a way of, so in my opinion, in the next 10 years, there will be no board exams. At least most of the other places. Maybe in India it will take a little longer. All your life is going to be blockchain through your continuous evaluation that is happening. And universities are going to look at this. So you'll have a public blockchain account. And people will know exactly what you've done your entire life, not in that one exam. Right? So we've started giving our students of grade 8 a blockchain. At the moment it is private. They're just going to use it for university applications. Instead of giving a website or a portfolio, they will give a blockchain number, and universities can see what they've been doing, whether in service or in exam, academics, etc., etc. But this is another area that I think, and these are my thoughts, okay, that education is going to change hugely. You know, I never ever thought, till about 5 years ago, that 50% and above students who are appearing for interviews for international universities will be interviewed by robots. Today it is happening. Almost over 50% of the interviews are not done by humans. When initially students started to interact, they were scared, yeah, because they were all interacted with human beings, but they're not interacted with robots. But today it is a common thing. All right? Today it is, the admission officers are using data, using algorithms, using reports, using psychometric testing to actually decide who to give admission to. It is no longer intuitive, human-based with biases. That's the way. And as educators, we've got to understand that this is the change that is going to happen. Okay. So how do you do this? In my opinion, if we are going to move from only an academic program to a program which is also non-academic, it is not going to happen till you not able to create a hybrid campus. Because see, teachers, after all, have a limited time, yeah? I mean, they've also got family time, they've also got personal time. How much can they do? They can't, complete syllabus and personalize. They can't do this, they can't do that. So we'll need to create, in my opinion, and this is the way the education is going to move ahead. And this also will ensure that if there are further black swans and disruptions, we are prepared. See, the problem is that all of us have to figure out what a hybrid education is. Hybrid education is where you can move from online to offline and offline back to online. Okay, we didn't do that last time. Huh? Last time we did remote education. We didn't do online education at all. When COVID came, we just started teaching how we were teaching in front of a laptop. And then brought in some Padlets and this, that and all to try and make it a little better because we couldn't use the board. All right. We did not do online teaching, we did remote education. Online education is completely different. It's got a different pedagogy. It has got a different format. You can't have a 40-minute class online. Nobody's going to pay attention. And like Sir said, today compaction of syllabus is the most required thing. Only then you will be able to do the non-academic part. Because I don't expect you to work more than X number of hours as teachers. All right? Today people are talking about nano and micro lessons. All right? A 1-minute TikTok gives more message than a 40-minute in a classroom. All right? It gives you, if it is made in the right way. All right? So micro lessons are like, if you have a pizza, a micro lesson is like a slice of pizza. And a nano lesson is like the topping you put on the pizza, whether you want chili flakes or you don't want chili flakes. Today, top universities are using these small modules to impart education because that is what keeps the student going, and it gets them onto the path of self-directed learning. We'll have to stop that directed learning and move away. Hybrid learning also includes not only synchronous but asynchronous. Today you have MOOCs here, they are all self-directed. There's no teacher there. So why, and listen, I'm sorry, I don't want to demean anyone. In areas that we don't give our students teachers, children, they don't do badly. In most areas they become better than us. Today every kid knows more about the phone and laptop and technology than I do. Who taught them? They've learnt it themselves. Self-directed learning is the most powerful tool. The other, in my opinion, is peer learning. All right, so hybrid campus will have to be created. But before you create a hybrid campus, and again, I'm actually repeating a lot of the things that Mr. Tripathi said, you've got to give autonomy. without autonomy, so basically what happened is that our entire structure, and I spoke about, I've got another slide with it, our entire structure is hierarchical. Principal से शुरू होता है और नीचे 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 जाता है. Problem क्या है कि the innovation will only happen if there is autonomy on the factory floor. In school, it is the classroom. So autonomy has to be given to the student and autonomy has given to be the teacher, not the principal. CBSE can't give autonomy, they'll give it to the school. It won't matter. They try their best to give it away. But you have to give autonomy, you have to give away control. Very difficult. Alright? Let the teachers become the principals in the classroom. You are no longer the principal. And I've listed multiple things that you could do. I'm just giving examples. There are hundreds of more things that one can do in order to create autonomy among students and create autonomy amongst children. Till you don't do this, you're not going to be able to create a hybrid campus. Okay. Now, therefore, what you need to do, I'm sorry, I'm just going to go here first. Therefore, what you need to do is that instead of having a hierarchical structure, you need to create a team of teams. Okay, where we are realigning the names only. Okay, instead of it being called so and so, we're calling them a chief learning officer, because that becomes important. But what's going to be important is that for experiential learning to come in, you've got to get in industry specialists, gig faculty. You know what gig faculty is? A gig is a music thing. Huh? You perform a gig, all right? A musician comes, he plays something, and you pay him, and that's called a gig. So gig faculty, a plumber does gig business. He comes to your house. He's not a permanent employee. He does his job, you pay him, and he goes. So a lot of education is going to be now dependent on gig. So you'll get people who are going to matter to make sure that they are doing that kind of learning that your students require. And of course, like I said, you need robotics to be a part of it. That is AI. I've already spoken, I'm going to speak a little more. A data scientist and a learning designer. And like I said, the people who come from design schools, they have to become integrated and create a team which will then be able to create a hybrid campus. See, what happens is that we talk about continuous evaluation or assessment karo. But how to do it? You tell me you have 25 students. I mean, a great school will have 20, 25 kids in a classroom. Now you teach 4 classes every day, for example. How do you go home and check 100 notebooks? And if you give the notebook back 1 week later, that assessment, that checking has zero value. It has to be done. Just a tuition teacher, wahin pe deta hai na aapko. They give you the feedback there only. If you give feedback to a student 1 week later, it is better you don't give it. Like in some schools, just people put tick and give. Ho gaya correction. It's not required. If feedback is to be given, it has to be given then. So how do you do it? It's not possible. And that is where you need to integrate all this technology. Only then will you be able to bring about that transition. Okay. Now I'm giving you one example of creating a hybrid model. Try this out. Pick up little things from here. All right. Now see, this hybrid model has, now this is what's going to give you the time to do the non-academic work. If you look inside, there are 4 aspects of it. One is face-to-face, like a normally teacher does. One is SDL, that is self-directed learning. The third is experiential learning, and Mr. Tripathi also spoke a lot about experiential learning. And fourth is game-based learning. This is going to be another area which is going to become extremely big in the next few years. Now, what happens is that I have actually divided it where you are going to teach only 1/4 of the time. Right? Whatever you were doing in the class, your entire एक chapter है जो भी आप पढ़ाते हो, उसको आप 4 areas में divide करो. Face to face. I'll tell you one thing. If you can explain the concept to the student, the content they will read here, and there's more content available online than you and I know anyway. All right? So create asynchronous tasks like a MOOC course has, where you create a task. The Khan Academy, all these people are doing this, right? Create a task, create a reading material, give tasks, let them do assessments, assignments, assessments, all online. For them to do, put up, like we have a direct to learner, D2L platform on which we put all this, and kids log in and do that. Now, when I talk about self-directed learning, okay, what you can use are, virtual exertions. So we've got these virtual hints. They'll become very common now. All right, VR and AR. Those. Second is very important, holograms. This is going to be another big technology that is going to be everywhere in the next 5 or 6 years. People are not going to go physically to places. Their holograms will go into meetings. It's already started. There's lots of available information online. And I mean, today it seems, it seems a lot of these things seem very, very distant. Okay. How many of you have watched Star Trek when we were young? Star Trek. Spock and, that, yeah, remember that? Now, if you watch that, everything they were using that time seemed some distant thing. Everything they were using is today available. All right, touch screens, mobile phones, they were using in 1980 in that Star Trek. They are available today. All right. So please do not keep this in your head that it is not going to happen in the next 5 or 7 or 10 years. And like I said, when students designed a class of 2030, they did not have the normal human teacher. We should sit up and realize that there is a problem. If we don't re-roll, re-skill, and re-evolve ourselves, we will become not required. I'm using it, putting it very, very mildly. All right. So the other is then experiential learning. Experiential learning even now can be done through ways. One is through community service, and that also helps to build empathy. Till you do not go out and understand your local problems, you're never ever going to solve larger problems. Okay, understanding localism is extremely important. And therefore, it is very important as school leaders, you drive a local campaign. See, we study rivers of China, वो 3 river हैं, एक Australia की river, 6 rivers of India, whatever, 20 rivers. But we are not aware of this town next to our city. What is the little nala that flows through our city called? Localism is extremely important. If you don't understand local problems, you will never become a problem solver. It has to start locally. Then only you expand out. So it's very important, community service, and give people industry experience. All education then finally translates into what is happening, like we say, in the area it matters. So when you're doing any kind of experiential learning, industry experience is extremely important. And like I said, game-based learning is now being integrated almost everywhere. All right? And AR and VR, okay, augmented reality and virtual reality are 2 technologies that are going to become a part of every educational system, whether you like it or not. And finally, like I said, face-to-face, only 25%. Now, if you do this 25%, this is the academic part, okay? Then you have a lot of time to do the non-academic part. You have a lot of time to personalize learning. You also have a lot of time to unlock potential so that, young people can get ready for their world. And in face-to-face learning today, tablets, and we are using a teacher robot, but, virtual assistants, today you can create, like you have Siri. You understand what Siri, Alexa, okay? Now, Alexa answers all your questions. Why can't you have a CBSE Alexa? Sir? It answers all CBSE based questions. Create that and make a virtual tutor. You don't even need to give a box. It should be online available. Every child should be able to go to a virtual tutor and ask what he wants to ask. Everything that is related to CBSE is there. Right? Then they see what happens is it allows that poor teacher to do other things. नहीं तो उससे पूछते रहते हैं सब कुछ. ठीक है, वो बना दो, घर में पढ़ के आएंगे सब. All right, so like I said, our Eagle robot, and you can go online and put Eagle Robot 5.0 is Indus Tutor. Okay, it's doing IB teaching. We've created it ourselves because we didn't want to wait for anyone else to do it, right? But as head of CBSE, you've got all the resources available. You should create, in my opinion, like you have an Alexa, a CBSE Alexa. Call it something else, right? It'll help the students to get onto the path of self-direction. See, what happens is today young kids are scared to study on their own because they are being taught to be taught. Right? The day they start to learn on their own, they'll know why we can do it ourselves. But they need some tools to be able to do it. Okay. And in that hybrid, you can do a lot which is AI driven. Right? See, I'll give you an example. So, like, we talked about this continuous evaluation. We talked even about critical thinking. What we are doing is that at the end of every class, and so at the end of every class, the teacher gives 5 MCQs. They have to prepare it according to the lesson. 5 MCQs. 3 are knowledge based because that's also required. You need to know before you can do anything. And 2 are critical thinking. Okay. Now the child has to only answer that. They have to say which is the right answer, they tick, or it is wrong. But we don't expect now the teacher to correct it, because that's not possible. Because even if there are 25 students, she takes 4 classes, she can't correct 100 of those. So we've hired a data management company who does predictive, prescriptive analysis, everything. It goes real time to them. They have already got the answers given by the teachers. AI figures it out, and within the next 6 or 7 minutes, it's back onto the teacher's dashboard, giving an output of what that class was. So the teacher, they will also say कि आपकी class बेकार थी आज, किसी को नहीं आया समझ, ये area समझ नहीं आया, right? This is integrating technology. It doesn't cost too much. You got to make that effort of putting it in, and life becomes easy for a teacher. Now what happens is that it starts to also see, if a child is attending 35 lessons every day, there's a lot of progress that is getting recorded on a day-to-day basis. So we've got a company called Cognitensor that runs this entire program for us. So there is in every area you can use artificial intelligence, integrate it, in order for it to become a lot easier for the teacher to do it in class. Okay. I'm going to move away from here. Yeah, like I said, this is our design thinking cycle. Like I mentioned that, we've used designers in the school to kind of make sure that, empathy and critical thinking and collaboration gets worked out. Okay. All right, I'll just show you one more thing before I go. Sorry, listen, I need to go back. Now, if you want to really bring about the kind of transformation that was spoken about today morning, and if you are to remain relevant, the teacher has to be re-rolled. The teacher in the class has to no longer be a teacher. They have to become a learning companion. Where, like in the Gurukul, you don't only teach the subject, but you teach the child. जो गुरुजी थे, वो खाली फिजिक्स केमिस्ट्री नहीं पढ़ाते थे, वो सिखाते थे कि जिंदगी कैसे जीनी है. That is the role of the teacher. And like today morning rightly mentioned, during the 200 years that we were colonized, they changed education because it wanted clerks. They made it directed so that we obey orders. We killed our creativity, killed our thinking power, right? Made everything that you don't think only. You just learn and write again. That became the education system. You got to reverse it. If if you are able to implement Gurukul system in the school, you would have won all the battles. All right? It was about taking that student, teaching him values, teaching him all competencies, teaching him livelihood. All right? And today our effort should be that when a student comes to my school or my class, I don't want him to only earn a livelihood. That is now in taxonomy very low. I want him to create a life for himself. Right? So it's extremely important that teachers say, what is it that we need to do? So you got to become a learning companion. You can't become a learning companion till you don't integrate technology and exponential technology. Otherwise, I can assure you, all this that we talk is going to remain only on paper. It is not humanly possible. I can assure you that even finally in India, when this will take place, it will be through digital and artificial intelligence and not through anything else. All right? So if you want to take the school to the next level, you got to do that now. Otherwise, you can wait for it to happen. It will happen. Otherwise, it will, see, exponential means exponential. Otherwise, it is always going to be incremental. Okay, everything is going to be incremental, little here, little there. You bring about change from, I was talking to him today morning. Education, they say that in 2040, the competition is not going to be between economic power or military power. It is going to be amongst the quality of education or the system of education when countries will compete. So we need to ensure that we are right on the top in terms of the quality of education that we give our children. The other thing is very important is that if your country is, today, I'm sorry to say, we don't do any innovation in a country. We produce no path-breaking stuff in the world. वो कुछ भी नया आता है तो वो कहीं और से आता है. We duplicate, replicate, but we don't make it ourselves. Because we are not research-minded, we are not experimenting. That is what needs to be done. There's a school called the Bronx High School in New York. Please read about it. It is in a backward part of New York where blacks rule the world, and at night you could be mugged. The Bronx High School has produced 8 Nobel laureates. 8, one school. Because they only do self-directed and experiential learning. Our country, academic, only has produced 3 Nobel laureates. So we need to change something. India has young people have probably the brightest minds. In my opinion, in spite of all the challenges, our teachers are able to produce the brightest kids. All right? If we change all this, there is no way anyone in this world will compete with us. But we've got to change, all of you have to lead this change of changing mindset. Till mindset is not changed amongst, and like Sir said, it doesn't matter if you don't get 100 on 100. What is it that you can do is important. Knowing, listen, without causing any, any kind of, please don't take this as religious at all. If I read the Bible very thoroughly, I know the Bible, but that doesn't make me a Christian. All right? If I read the Gita very thoroughly, like a scholar, it doesn't make me a Hindu, or the Guru Granth Sahib, or the Quran. The day I live the Gita, I am the Hindu. The day I live the Bible, I'm a Christian. So knowing physics or knowing chemistry in today's world is no good, man. You got to learn to do chemistry, and you got to learn to do physics. Only then you will be able to do it. And fortunately, in the programs we run, that transition from just knowing, your learning is there. So in our, for example, My expectation is that instead of learning content, students will learn how to find information, process it, make meaning out of it, and give their own independent thought and the rationale for why they're saying what they're saying. That change has to be brought about. Change it from, in my opinion, change it from syllabus to curriculum. Okay, syllabus is only what you study. If you are able to do it, how to learn. ATL, approaches to teaching and learning, is the big thing in, in our type of education. That transition has to happen. Only then you will be able to create a school where non-academic education will thrive, because academic education will get them to college. Non-academic education will prepare them for life. Both are required. All right? I'll tell you one thing. If you are academically good and have competencies, you will excel. But if you're not academically bright and you have competencies, you will survive. But if you have academics only and no competencies, you have no hope. You will just get into a college, and post-college, nobody will want to give you a job. Today you find people from the top engineering college teaching in school because nobody will employ them as an engineer, because they did not build those skills that were required. Okay, I'm just going to quickly go ahead. Sorry. And like I said, in order for you to make life easy, see, all this we can continue to talk and talk and talk till the cows come home, but it's not going to have impact on the floor. So the first thing you got to do is to start becoming data minded. Use data, your own school data, to help you to make decisions in the classroom, as a coordinator, as a principal, and there are various things you can do with data. And once you have a certain cycle of data, you can get people to create the models for you, which will then also help you to do predictive and prescriptive analysis. That is where you got to reach. Only then will teachers be able to do all that personalization that we spoke about. All right? If you have to become a learning companion, which talks about unlocking potential, it talks about the 90-10. I didn't talk too much about it. Moving on from Pareto's principle. Pareto is to be 80-20. Abhi VUCA world mein 90-10 ho gaya. All right? You've got to move there. It will only happen if you use certain exponential technologies, and data-driven decision making is one of them. Life may, most of these everyday decisions are best made through numbers. Okay? No bias, no lying, nothing. It comes directly to you. And it makes life very easy. You don't have to do correction after correction after correction after correction. It's not possible. Because घर में मम्मी भी हैं, grandmother-in-law भी है, kids are also crying, husband also requires, most schools have women teachers. They've got so much work at home. How do you expect them to go home and check 100 notebooks? It's not possible. Automation is required. Okay. These are, in my opinion, 6 exponential technologies that will be integrated into education in the next 5 years. 5 years means 5 years. A lot of them are already there. You've got to automate things. VR, AR, we are using cobots, which is collaborating with robots. It's happening in universities, colleges, everywhere around the world. And sooner or later, it's going to come to India. And like I said, big data handling, and also very, very importantly, see what happens is that today people don't want to know what you ended up only with. People want to know what you've been doing all your life here. Why should I judge you, young man, on what exam you give? I want to know who you really are. And for that, blockchain is now going to become an important thing. It's going to also come a lot in the financial sector. Financial sector is all going to be blockchain, right? But it is also, in fact, some of the universities have already started asking for blockchain accounts. All right? Like today, the SAT is gone. All right. Most universities in the US are now test blind, they call them, or test optional, because they realized that these were not actually aptitude test scores. They were tutored scores. Tuition le lekar wo aa gaye 1500 so and so. But when they get to university, they don't have any aptitude. They say, we don't want this anymore. Because all these Asian countries, Southeast Asia, they had all these tuition centers where people would get trained for SAT, and they would get very high scores, and they would get admissions on the basis of the SAT scores. So most of the good universities have become test optional or test blind. All right? And they've now started believing in, will you add value to my campus? All right? And if you are able to add value to my campus is where I want to go. Okay? So this is what we are doing at the moment with a blockchain. All right? It's about hash certificates, module credits, activity credits, and it'll finally go to a future employer or to a future university. This is what we've just started. We've given it to 1 grade at the moment. It's something that we are testing out in our school. It's not very expensive to do. It's like, you take website, apni website banao, वैसे अपना blockchain banao. Yeah. I know I'm going to finish now. These are the areas, in my opinion, and each one of them is actually a workshop on its own. All right. I've done a lot of what is called non-linear talking. All right. So a lot of them, this is what we are doing. This is our school. This is what we are doing now in phase 1. And that is what we are going to be doing in phase 2 in terms of automation in the school. This has already happened, a lot of this. And that is actually going on at the moment. Okay. In digital technology, and these are, I could show you examples after examples of how digital technology is now being used. Like, for example, I'll just give you an example that if you go to study planets, stars, you can go into Sky Map. Everything is available. Use a VR set. You can use Froggypedia for dissecting a frog. It's amazing the kind of technology that is available today, free. Right? Now, once you start the process of automating and using technologies available, teachers, principals, your teachers will find life. They won't only leave you and go to another school for 20,000 rupees more, because they say, yahan to bahut comfortable life hai. Because I'm getting so much of new learning to do. And, holographic projectors. Today, I could have actually been, if we had the technology going, and Mr. Tripathi could have been in our own homes, and our holograms could have been brought here. It will happen in 2 years' time. Today's, you please mark my words, this technology is going to explode in the next 2 years. 2024, end December, you will go visiting, your holograms will go visiting to Thailand or to Pattaya or whatever for a Christmas break or whatever it is. That's the speed at which it will grow. उसमें Mr. Modi का था, yeah? Yeah. But what's happened, sir, is that everything, once it evolves, then it takes a cycle before it kind of explodes into the world. So it's going to happen now. All right, so you'll all be having holograms. And today, Microsoft, what you call translator, does real-time translating. तो जैसे मैं इंग्लिश में बोल रहा हूँ, वो कोई हिंदी में सुन रहा होगा, वो उसी instant. There's a videos now available online which show how it is being done in Japanese, and so every country you can have it in a different language. That is the power of that particular thing. Okay. We are using it at the moment for this. So I just want to explain to you very briefly, I'll take 2-3 minutes, on how we are using AI in the classroom. All right? How it helps to personalize learning, and how it enables to give continuous feedback. Okay. So if you have a class of 40 minutes is your class? Yeah, so normal class is 40 minutes. So in a classroom, there is a robot who knows all the content that is required, that a normal teacher would know, which has been built by ourselves. And there is a teacher also there. Okay. Now when the class starts, the role of the teacher is to come and first deliver the concept. What teacher batayega? Class बैठी है, there are 24 students. The teacher talks about the concept. Once the teacher has finished the concept, the robot takes over to teach the content. Okay, now what happens is that all 24 students are logged into the computer. Means they're connected like a Bluetooth ke saath connected. Now when the robot is teaching, the students can ask as many questions. They can type it and they will be answered then only. The robot continues to teach because it can do that, humans can't do it. The other thing it does is that while it is teaching, it will give pop-up questions. Okay, you know, like sir talked about photosynthesis. What is the gas that is given out in photosynthesis? To likha hoga carbon dioxide, true or false. So the student has to just click on which is right. Now, while teaching, it is also sending back all that data to the teacher. Okay, listen, these are 3 students who have not understood this. These are 4 students who understood it. These are 6 students who have not understood, didn't get this particular part. Now, after teaching 20 minutes ka wo content, then now the teacher already has that data of who's understood and who's not understood. And the next 10 minutes or 15 minutes in the class, that job is to do remediation and do what is called assessment for learning. Okay, sir, you didn't understand this. This is how it is done. This told me you did it wrong. That allows it to personalize. And then what you do, you give them 5 questions. Say multiple choice. Please answer them. They get sent to a data company, and by the time the teacher reaches the staff room, on the laptop she's got the outcome of that classroom, whether it was effective, not effective, who understood content, who did not understood concept. Go tomorrow morning, or this class was useless, nobody understood anything, redo it. So they will actually send back and say, this class didn't work. Go back and redo it. All right, these are the areas that did not work. Now the teacher actually has gone and only taught for 20 minutes. Okay, so she's fresh. She's trying to figure out what needs to be done. Just by using exponential technology. Till you don't do that, this big transition will become very difficult, because we are a country which is very large. You always have many students, less number of staff. It doesn't work out. And especially in your schools, where I guess you'll have 35, 40 children in a classroom. Unless and until you don't use some kind of technology, personalization cannot take place. All right? Okay. So this is for you. Okay. If CBSE can build a virtual assistant which talks only about the academic part, you would bring about, in my opinion, a huge transformation in country. And it should be available online for a laptop. Like Alexa is available on phone. Make it available to students on phone, and you will see that they will get onto this path of self-directed learning, and they will be able to do many, many other things in the time that they have got left. All right. I'm going to end here because I have to actually leave. All right. But I would be happy to answer 1 or 2 questions if anyone has. Thank you.
So I think it's been a good journey since morning. Different perspectives, looking at what's happening, what needs to get better, what will be the condition 20 years from now. A big round of applause for Mr. Sandeep Chabra. And it was wonderful getting us future ready for the VUCA world.
मैं प्रश्न तो नहीं पूछ रहा हूं, मैंने बहुत सारी चीजें आज सीखी, बहुत सारा नोट भी किया, आगे मैंने होमवर्क भी ले लिया है अपना। थैंक यू छाबड़ा जी, बहुत ब्रिलियंट तरीके से बहुत सारी चीजें बताने के लिए। मैं दो तीन, आप लोग बैठिए ना, आप लोग नीचे बैठ जाइए, बैठ जाइए। सिर्फ दो चीजें मैं आपको इसमें बताना चाहूंगा। एक, हम में से हर किसी को सब कुछ नहीं आता है और हम में से हर कोई सब कुछ नहीं कर सकता है, लेकिन अगर हमारे अंदर कोलैबोरेशन की स्किल है एज ए लीडर, एज ए प्रिंसिपल, और अगर हमें ये मालूम है कि किससे कैसे कहाँ से काम लेना है, जैसे आप दुनिया की डिक्शनरी की सारी चीजें याद नहीं करते, लेकिन जरूरत होने पे डिक्शनरी खोल लेते हैं, जरूरत होने पे सर्च कर लेते हैं। जितनी चीजें यहाँ हैं, मैक्सिमम चीजें आपने सुनी भी नहीं होंगी, देखी भी नहीं होंगी, अनुभव भी नहीं लिया होगा। थोड़ी देर इंटरेस्ट रहा होगा, थोड़ी देर बाद आपने सुनना भी बंद कर दिया होगा। जितनी चीजें यहाँ हैं वो दुनिया में बहुत तेजी से हो रही हैं। जरूरी नहीं कि आप जाने, लेकिन अगर आप लीडर हैं और प्रिंसिपल हैं तो इनके जानने वाले लोगों को आप अपने से कनेक्ट कर लें, अपने स्कूल में एंटर करा लें, अपने करिकुलम का पार्ट बना लें। देयर आर मेनी स्कूल्स जिन्होंने करिकुलम के डायरेक्टर अपॉइंट कर लिए हैं। प्रिंसिपल को करिकुलम बनाना नहीं आता, टीचर उतने एक्सपर्ट नहीं हैं, उन्होंने करिकुलम एक्सपर्ट हायर कर लिया। तो उस प्रिंसिपल में ये लीडरशिप क्वालिटी थी कि चलो ठीक है, हम इसके एक्सपर्ट नहीं, लेकिन करिकुलम की डिजाइनिंग बहुत जरूरी है, तो हायर कर लिया। आपको एआई नहीं आता, आपको ब्लॉकचेन नहीं आती, आपको डिजाइनिंग थिंकिंग नहीं आती, आपको रोबोटिक्स नहीं आता, एआर वीआर नहीं आता, लेकिन इसका यह मतलब नहीं कि स्कूल में इसकी एंट्री ना हो। अगर हम रिजिड होंगे, फ्लेक्सिबल नहीं होंगे, तो ये चीजें आपके यहाँ नहीं आएंगी। तो पहली चीज जो आपसे मैं कहना चाहूंगा कि आप इसके जो जानने वाले एक्सपर्ट्स हैं, लोग हैं, अपने मैनेजमेंट से बात करके एज ए लीडर लीड करके आप उनको कनेक्ट करें स्कूलों से, जिससे ये चीजें एक्चुअली घटित हो सके, नहीं तो नहीं होंगी। क्योंकि आप लीडर हैं, आप टॉप पे हैं, आप कनेक्ट नहीं करेंगे, चीजें नहीं आएंगी। ये मेरी पहली रिक्वेस्ट था, आप इसको करेंगे तभी ये चीजें होंगी। आपको ये भी बताना चाहेंगे, जो छाबड़ा जी प्रेजेंट कर रहे थे, ये हमने अपने पता नहीं कितने स्कूलों को मालूम होगा, ये हमने सिलेबस का ही नहीं, ये हमने एज ए कोर्स लॉन्च भी कर दिया। फ्रॉम क्लास 6th एआई फ्रॉम क्लास 6th हमने लॉन्च कर दिया है, रोबोटिक्स को लॉन्च कर दिया, जितनी ये चीजें हैं उसको। लेकिन डिफरेंस है दोनों में। एक होता है 10, 20, 40, 50 बच्चों को क्लासरूम में सिखाने के लिए रख लेना, और एक होता है इस टेक्नोलॉजी का उपयोग अपने स्कूल की टीचिंग लर्निंग में करना। ये बात कर रहे हैं टीचिंग लर्निंग में करने के लिए। तो एआई, ब्लॉकचेन, जितनी भी चीजें अगर टीचिंग लर्निंग का पार्ट बना लेंगे तो आपके यहाँ लर्निंग एक्सपीरियंशियल, एनालिटिकल, क्रिटिकल थिंकिंग बेस्ड हो जाएगी, बच्चे बेटर समझने लगेंगे। एक छोटा सा उदाहरण दूं, 2007-8 में मैं जब छाबड़ा साहब प्रिंसिपल था, 7-8 में मुझे याद है एडुकॉम और एक्स्ट्रा मार्क्स दोनों कंपनियां वर्ल्ड में आई थी जो स्मार्ट बोर्ड लेके आई थी, एंड हम देहरादून मसूरी में फर्स्ट स्कूल थे जिसने ले लिया। क्यों लिया? सिंपल रीजन था, कॉन्सेप्ट अभी ये रिवाइज करने की बात कर रहे हैं। हमारे साथ प्रॉब्लम क्या थी? हमने कहा टेक्स्ट जो है, बुक्स जो है वो टीचर पढ़ा दे और कॉन्सेप्ट वो स्मार्ट क्लास सिखा दे। इन्होंने रिवर्स किया है क्योंकि टीचर का रोल डिफरेंट है। हमने स्मार्ट बोर्ड सिर्फ इसलिए लगाया था क्योंकि उससे अंडरस्टैंडिंग थोड़ी बेटर थी, उसमें यही सब यूज होता है। अगर स्मार्ट क्लास उठाएं 3 days लेकर के सब कुछ यूज करते हैं, जितनी चीजें आपने सोची सब उसमें आता है। तो जो स्मार्ट क्लासेज उनके कोर्स थे, 7-8 की बात है, 8 में हमने स्टार्ट किया था। 8 में जब आया तो हमने स्मार्ट बोर्ड लिए, क्लासरूम में लगाए, पहले स्कूल में एक में लगाए, फिर हमने शुरू किया। और उसको इसलिए शुरू किया कि बच्चों का कॉन्सेप्ट बेटर क्लियर हो। तो ये जितनी चीजें हैं, जितने भी ज्ञान यहां दिए गए हैं, इसका सिर्फ एक रीजन है, ऐसे पढ़ाओ कि नॉलेज भी मिल जाए, समझ में भी आ जाए, एप्लीकेशन भी बच्चा करने लगे, थोड़ा एनालिटिकली, क्रिटिकली, इंक्वायरी बेस्ड लर्निंग हो जाए। क्योंकि जब ये सब कुछ होगा तभी आप क्रिएटिविटी और इनोवेशन तक पहुंचेंगे, और क्रिएटिविटी और इनोवेशन ही दुनिया की सारी समस्याओं का समाधान है, जो हम नहीं कर पा रहे हैं। हमारे यहाँ बहुत कम है, हम बहुत लो लेवल पे हैं रिसर्च में, इनोवेशन पे, पेटेंट पे, इन सब चीज़ों में, क्योंकि हमारी पूरी जो करिकुलम टीचिंग लर्निंग प्रोसेस है वो इसको किल करती है। तो एक ये कि हमने स्कूलों में तो एज ए सब्जेक्ट लॉन्च कर दिया है, लेकिन आप अपने क्लासरूम में इस टेक्नोलॉजी का उपयोग करें और करें, समझें इन चीज़ों को। और दूसरी रिक्वेस्ट ये है कि आप ये तब करेंगे जब थोड़ा थोड़ा इंटरेस्ट आप लेंगे, थोड़ा रीड करेंगे। बार बार इन्होंने कहा आज क्लास खत्म होना, अगले 1 हफ्ते 10 दिन में थोड़ा सा पढ़ो और सीख लीजिए डिजाइनिंग थिंकिंग क्या है, ब्लॉकचेन क्या है। हम ब्लॉकचेन सीबीएसई में हमने स्टार्ट कर दिया, 50 इयर्स का डाटा ब्लॉकचेन में रखने जा रहे हैं। 50 इयर्स आप कल्पना नहीं कर सकते हैं। वो ब्लॉकचेन टेक्नोलॉजी तो स्टार्ट कर दिया हमने। डिजाइन थिंकिंग मतलब पढ़ेंगे तो आपको समझ में आएगा, तो मजा आएगा तो आप लागू कर देंगे। मतलब आप किस तरीके से सोचते हैं, उसको डिजाइन कैसे करते हैं, फ्यूचर समस्याओं को सॉल्व करने की डिजाइनिंग कैसे करते हैं। डिजाइन अभी तक हम सब ने यही सुना था ना, डिजाइन बिल्डिंग में यूज होता है, यही सुना था ना कि डिजाइनिंग जो है वो जो बिल्डिंग कंस्ट्रक्शन वाले होते हैं उसके डिजाइन बनाते हैं। आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस अभी कुछ 1-2-3 वर्षों में आप लोगों ने नाम सुना है क्या? नहीं, इमेजिन कि सबसे पहले आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस में 62 में बुक लिख दी गई थी। जो मिस्टर रो थे 69 में इस पर उनकी रिसर्च आ गई थी। और जब आपने इसका नाम सुना है उससे 20 वर्ष पहले MIT में AI पढ़े हुए बच्चे निकलना शुरू हो गए थे। अभी आप नाम सुन रहे हैं, वहां PhD शुरू हो चुके, मतलब वो बच्चा कितने वर्ष पहले वहां से निकल गया था। तो इसलिए वो आगे निकल जाते हैं, इसलिए बहुत आगे हैं, इसलिए सारी चीजें वहां होती हैं, सारे इनोवेशन रिसर्च होते हैं। मैं इसका सिर्फ इतना ही आउटपुट ले रहा हूं जो छाबड़ा साहब ने कहा है कि प्लीज आप इतना तो करिए कि ये चीजें करने के लिए लोगों को कनेक्ट कर लीजिए, कोलैबोरेट कर लीजिए, और स्टार्ट कर दिए अपने स्कूल में। इतने से ही सही चीजें सही दिशा में चलना शुरू हो जाएंगी, क्योंकि आने वाले समय में यही फ्यूचर है, यही चीजें आगे बढ़ेंगी। तो थैंक यू छाबड़ा जी इसके लिए, बहुत अच्छी चीज आपने की, बहुत अच्छे से आपने बताया। और इन्होंने खुद ही कह दिया कि अगर इसको आप जो है यूज नहीं करेंगे तो ये बस स्पीच की बात रह जाएगी। एक अच्छे प्रेजेंटेशन की, आए बढ़िया से सुने, देखे, खाना खाए और चले गए। फिर उसके बाद तो स्कूल तो जैसा चल रहा था चलेगा, बट चेंज द वर्ल्ड, चेंज योर स्कूल। थैंक यू, थैंक यू।
So wonderful. Just sit down 1 second, please. Yeah. So while he has a flight to catch, wish you a very happy journey, Mr. Chabra. All good wishes from Seedling, from all the teachers and principals here. Thank you. We'll be in touch, and thank you for all the novel ideas. So that's some radical thinking, a lot of progressive thinking, which sometimes rattles us, unsettles us. But the reality is, this is what we have to gear up for. So we will all now move down for lunch, all right? Now the lunch venue today changes. So we're not going to the MBA lawns like yesterday. As you go down, right in front of the main entrance of the hospital, you have a new indoor sports complex